They say betrayal never comes from your enemies. And I used to nod at that like it was some deep philosophical truth. But I never really understood it, until it was my wife. And worse, my own father. I'm Jason, 34, blue collar, work my ass off type. Been married to Rachel for 6 years. We were solid, or so I thought. We owned a modest house just outside Nashville, split the mortgage, no kids yet, just dreams of, someday. I worked in HVAC, she was an occupational therapist. Nothing flashy, just steady, comfortable. My dad, Harold, moved in with us last fall. Yeah, that part's important. He had some heart issues, and after a minor stroke, the doctors said he shouldn't live alone. My mom died when I was in high school, and he never remarried. So Rachel offered, mind you, that he stay in our finished basement. Said it'd be temporary. Said we'd get through it together. At first, I was grateful, proud, even. Rachel went out of her way to take care of him, checking his meds, cooking his weird vegan meals, watching old war documentaries with him when I had to work late. I remember saying to a buddy, man, I don't know what I did to deserve her. I meant it, but looking back, that's where it all started. The first time I noticed something was off was a Saturday morning in February. I'd just come back from a job out in Franklin, and Rachel was in the laundry room, flustered. She jumped when I came in, quick to close the dryer door. Everything all right? I asked. She nodded too fast. Yeah, just spilled some detergent. I noticed one of my dad's undershirts half tucked behind her. It wasn't dirty, didn't look like laundry, but I let it go. Thought maybe she was being extra careful with his stuff, since it was delicate or something. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who starts inventing problems in a marriage that's been good. But that was the first crack. And once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. That night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to get water. As I passed the top of the basement stairs, I saw the light under the door. Nothing strange there, Dad was a night owl. But I paused when I heard laughter. Rachel's. It was quiet, like she was trying not to be heard. That kind of giggle I hadn't heard from her in months. I stood there, hand on the doorknob, trying to convince myself it was nothing. That she probably just left her phone down there or went to check on him, maybe they were watching TV. But she never mentioned it in the morning. And when I asked, casually, did you head down to check on Dad last night? She blinked once. No. Why? I didn't press. But my gut tightened. A week later, I started coming home for lunch unannounced. Not every day, just once or twice a week. Call it curiosity, call it paranoia. She'd always greet me in the kitchen, smiling, sometimes startled like she didn't expect me. And my dad? Always seemed to be just heading up the stairs or just taking a nap. Coincidence, maybe, but by now, I had a pit in my stomach every time I turned my key in the door. Then came the day I couldn't ignore. It was a Wednesday. I came home early, real early. Around 10 a.m. truck was in the shop, and the client canceled. I didn't text Rachel I was coming, wanted to surprise her. I unlocked the door quietly, as always. House was dead silent, but the basement door was slightly ajar. I crept toward it. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was fear, I don't know, but I moved slow, like my body already knew what I was about to hear. And I heard it, her voice, muffled, breathless, then my father's voice, deep, grunting. My hand froze on the doorknob. I stood there for what felt like hours, knees locked, heart pounding so loud I thought it might give me away. I couldn't go down, couldn't see it, but I couldn't move either. It was only when a loud thump echoed from below that I snapped out of it and backed away, slow, careful, like a soldier defusing a bomb. I didn't confront them, not then. I just left the house. Drove for 3 hours. Didn't know where I was going. Ended up at an old gas station near the Tennessee-Kentucky line, just sitting in the truck staring at the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in stunned silence, realizing the unimaginable. My wife was sleeping with my father. I didn't sleep that night. I parked a mile from the house, left the truck running, and sat there in the dark, watching headlights roll past while the clock ticked. All I could think was, don't go in yet. Don't let them see your face until you're ready. Until you've got a plan. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I went home just before sunrise. Rachel was in the kitchen, pouring coffee like nothing happened. She smiled, asked where I'd gone the day before. I told her I'd gotten caught up on a call, that I slept in the truck to GIV. Her some peace and quiet. She looked at me, slightly confused, but didn't question it. My dad came up the stairs 20 minutes later, wearing the same robe I gave him last Christmas. He acted like he didn't even see me. No shame, no awkwardness, just a nod. Morning, son. And Rachel? She kissed me on the cheek as I headed to the shower. That's when I realized they weren't scared, not even trying to hide anymore. That basement wasn't just a guest room. It was their hideaway. But I wasn't going to blow up. Not yet. I'd been a fool once. I wasn't gonna be one again. That afternoon, I started laying the groundwork. I stopped by a buddy's place, Matt. He's an old friend from high school, runs a home security company now. I told him I wanted to upgrade my system, inside and out. He asked if something happened. I just said, I need to keep an eye on my house. He didn't ask more. Matt's good like that. By the next day, I had a small camera in the living room, another in the kitchen, and one in the basement stairwell, hidden behind a smoke detector shell. The real trick, though, was the audio recorder I tucked under the couch cushions in the basement itself. Battery powered, motion triggered, and I waited. The next 2 days were quiet. Rachel was sweet again, more attentive than she'd been in weeks. She made dinner 2 nights in a row, even wore makeup around the house, something she hadn't done in a while. I started to question myself. Wonder if maybe I'd misheard things. If my mind had filled in blanks it shouldn't have. But then Friday came, and Rachel called me around noon to say she'd be working late, double booked at the clinic. Said she might crash early, just beat from the week. That night, I made a point of coming home late too. Gave them space, gave them time. When I pulled into the driveway around midnight, all the lights were off. Except for one, the thin glow under the basement door. I didn't go down. I didn't even open the door. I just grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat on the back porch, letting the cool air cut through the rage building in my chest. The next morning, Rachel was already up, dressed in a zip-up hoodie and jogging shorts, acting like she'd been out for a run. She kissed me again, asked if I wanted pancakes. I said sure, all smiles, like the night before hadn't happened. Later that day, I retrieved the recorder from under the basement couch. Plugged it into my laptop in the garage. What I heard made my stomach turn. Moans, whispers, laughter. Rachel's voice, teasing, playful. And my father's voice, unmistakable, low and smug. Think he knows? Nah, she said, giggling. He's clueless. And then, clear as day. Let him keep working. He's useful. That last word echoed in my ears like a gunshot. Useful. That's all I was to them. I didn't cry. I didn't break things. I just made another call to Matt. I need one more camera, I said. Hidden in the basement. Everything all right, Jay? No, I said flatly. But it will be. I was done playing defense. It was time to go on the offense. But this wasn't gonna be a screaming match or some soap opera fistfight. This was gonna be surgical. And it would hurt. I always thought of revenge as something loud, smashed windows, screaming matches, dramatic exits. But real revenge? The kind that cuts deep and lingers? It's quiet. It's patient. It starts with a smile at breakfast and ends with everything they thought was theirs slipping through their fingers. By Monday, the new camera was installed in the basement. Matt helped me set it up under the false pretense of keeping an eye on my dad in case of a fall. It was small, tucked behind a vent near the ceiling, wide enough to cover the whole room. I synced it with a secure cloud drive I'd set up. It only recorded when there was motion. Rachel never knew, neither did my father. They thought they were clever. They were just comfortable. The first night I captured footage, I didn't even mean to. I was at work, late shift. Rachel had texted me earlier, long day. Crashing early. Love you. I checked the live feed out of pure instinct. And there they were, not in bed, on the couch, her straddling him, laughing, holding a glass of wine. His hands on her hips like he'd done it 100 times. I muted the video. Didn't need to hear it. I watched just long enough to see them kiss, long and slow, like lovers, not like something shameful. There was no guilt in her eyes. No fear in his. It wasn't an affair to them anymore. It was routine. The next day, I started phase 2. I met with a lawyer. A good one. One of those shark types who don't flinch when you tell them what you've seen. I laid it out straight. My wife is sleeping with my father. I want out, but I want to control the narrative. He raised an eyebrow, but he didn't laugh. You want this quiet or public? Both, I said. Quiet now, public later. He smiled like I passed a test. Then you're gonna need leverage. A clean financial exit, property division, no alimony. I handed him a flash drive. Start here. That weekend, Rachel suggested a weekend getaway. Just us, she said. It's been a rough few months. It almost made me laugh. I agreed, told her I'd look into cabins up near Gatlinburg. Told her I'd take a few days off. Said it'd be nice to reset. The moment she left for work, I printed copies of the security footage stills. Not all of them, just enough. One photo. Her sitting in his lap. Another. Them holding hands. One more. Their clothes scattered on the floor. I put them in a plain envelope. No note, no explanation, and I mailed it to my mother-in-law. Her church-going. Rachel can do no wrong, mother. I mailed a second copy to Rachel's boss at the clinic. Then I waited. That Sunday night, I came home to Rachel pacing the living room, her phone in hand, mascara smudged, eyes red. Someone's been spreading lies, she said, voice trembling. Oh? She turned on me. Did you send pictures to my mom? What pictures? She stared at me, trying to read my face. You don't know anything about this? I shook my head. Why would I do something like that? She broke, sat down on the couch and held her head in her hands. My mom won't talk to me. My jobs. I don't know what's going to happen. I sat next to her and rubbed her back, pretending I didn't know she had just been doing that same thing to my father. She looked up at me and whispered, I think someone's trying to ruin me. I nodded, looked her dead in the eye, and said, yeah. That's awful, but I wasn't done. Because the next envelope? That one was going to my dad, along with a simple note. I know. The envelope I sent my father was simple, no return address, no signature. Just a single photo of him and Rachel, half naked, sitting on the basement couch, their faces frozen in a moment of smug comfort. I included one line, handwritten in block letters on a torn scrap of paper. I know, so does she. I mailed it on a Tuesday. By Friday morning, my father was gone. I came downstairs and found the basement stripped. No clothes, no suitcase, no leftover food or half-read newspapers. Just the musty, hollow silence of a room that had been lived in and abandoned. Rachel was in the kitchen when I came back up, her eyes darting toward mine, waiting for me to ask. So I didn't. She cracked first. Did you know he left? She asked, trying to sound casual, but her voice shook. I played dumb. What? Since when? Sometime last night, I think. His bed's empty. All his stuff's gone. I shrugged. Did he say anything to you? She opened her mouth, then shut it. I could see the wheels turning, could almost hear the panic behind her silence. No, she said finally, nothing. I nodded and poured my coffee. Inside, I was already rewriting the next scene of my little play. My father didn't call, didn't text, not a word, but he hadn't gone far. I knew him too well. He always ran when things got messy. He'd disappear until someone came looking. Wait until the dust settled, then act like nothing happened. But I wasn't going to chase him. I wanted him to wait in his silence. Wondering how much I knew. Wondering if I was coming for him. And Rachel? She didn't handle the uncertainty well. She grew jumpy, quiet. She checked her phone constantly. She barely touched her food at dinner and kept sneaking glances toward the basement door, like she expected him to walk back in and explain it all away. But he didn't, and she started unraveling. That weekend, I took my time putting Phase 3 into motion. I invited Rachel to dinner, someplace decent, not fancy. Told her I wanted to talk about the next chapter in our lives. She looked hopeful, pathetically so. She even wore the necklace I gave her on our 3rd anniversary. That detail almost pissed me off more than anything. The gall. Over dinner, I told her I'd been thinking about moving, maybe selling the house and downsizing. Something closer to the city. New job prospects. New start. She hesitated. Together? Of course, I said. She blinked twice, then smiled. That sounds good. Really good. I could see it. She thought she'd gotten away with it. That maybe whatever that was with my father, it was behind her now. He was gone. It was over. No consequences. She was wrong. That night, after she went to sleep, I packed a duffel bag. Laptop. Hard drive. The original flash drive with the footage. My tools. I took the truck and drove to a motel on the edge of town. A cheap one with wood-paneled walls and buzzing neon outside. I didn't need luxury, I just needed quiet. From there, I scheduled 2 more envelope deliveries. One to Rachel's HR department, and one, my personal favorite, to her best friend, Dana. The one who always bragged about how solid Rachel and I were. How rare it was to see a couple as strong as us. I timed them to arrive the next Monday morning. I wanted Rachel's world to collapse right at the start of her week. But before that happened, I had one more loose end to tie off. I drove out to the address I pulled from my dad's DMV record. A rundown little house just past the county line. I knew he kept it for weekends, said he liked to get away. I used to think that meant peace and quiet. Now I wondered how many women had been through there. He answered the door in a bathrobe. Looked like hell, hadn't shaved in days, eyes bloodshot, like he hadn't slept since Tuesday. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. I just handed him a manila envelope and turned to leave. He called out as I reached my truck. Jason. I stopped but didn't turn. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I stared at the sky, then said quietly, yeah. That's what you said about Mom, too. I drove off without looking back. The next morning, at 9:06 a.m., Rachel's friend Dana texted her. By 9:17, Rachel called me. I let it ring. At 10:02, my lawyer texted me. HR packet received. Do you want to proceed today? I replied with one word. Yes. I'll never forget the sound of her voice when she finally got through to me that afternoon. It wasn't the voice of the woman I'd married, confident, sharp, a little too proud for her own good. It was the voice of someone cornered, stripped of control. Jason, she said, half crying, half angry, what is this? What did you do? I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch until I could almost hear her breathing hitch on the other end. HR called me in, she said. They showed me pictures, Jason. Pictures. I could lose my job. My mother won't even pick up the phone. Dana's blocked me. She stopped to catch her breath. I could picture her pacing our living room, phone pressed tight to her ear, hair a mess, tears streaking her makeup. Please, she said, voice cracking. Tell me it wasn't you. I finally spoke, calm, steady. Rachel, I think you already know the answer. Silence. Then the smallest, most broken whisper I'd ever heard from her. You saw it. Every minute, I said. She didn't hang up right away. I think she wanted to explain, maybe even beg. But what was there left to say? So when her voice came back, it was just 3 small words, barely audible. I'm so sorry. I almost laughed. Sorry. That word again. Like it was a bandage for a bullet wound. I told her, don't be. You and Dad did me a favor. Then I ended the call. By evening, the paperwork was filed. No fault on paper, but my lawyer had everything. Footage, timestamps, texts, the recorded call where she admitted it. Enough to kill any sympathy she might have had left in court. The best part? The property. Since the house was in my name before marriage, she had no legal claim to it. She could fight, but she'd lose. My father's contribution to renovations would look a lot different once the lawyer connected the timeline to their affair. I slept better that night than I had in months. But peace doesn't come easy. 2 days later, I came home from work and found Rachel sitting on the front steps. No car, just her. Hair pulled back, duffel bag beside her. She looked up when I parked, eyes swollen. Can we talk? I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Inside, she stood in the kitchen. The same place she used to hum while cooking dinner, the same counter where I'd first told her I loved her. I made a mistake, she said. A horrible one. Your father, I cut her off. Don't put it on him. You knew what you were doing. She shook her head. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was. God, Jason, it was like he knew how to talk to me. He made me feel seen again. You were always working, always tired, and I slammed my hand against the counter. Stop talking like it was my fault. The echo hung in the air between us. She took a shaky breath. I deserve this. I know I do. But please, Jason, don't destroy him. He's still your father. That was the moment I realized how far gone she was. She wasn't worried about herself. She was worried about him. I stepped closer, low and even. He stopped being my father the night he touched you. She left after that, didn't even look back. I watched from the porch as she walked down the driveway, duffel over her shoulder, the late autumn light fading behind her. For a while, I just stood there. The house felt different, empty, sure, but also lighter, cleaner. Later that night, a text came through from an unknown number. Dad, I heard she's gone. Let's talk like men before this goes any further. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, you'll get your chance. Soon. Because the revenge wasn't finished. Not yet. He still had something I needed, and I was going to take it back in a way he'd never see coming. I didn't respond to my father's text right away. I wanted him to sweat. To sit there with his phone in his hand, reading and rereading those 5 words. You'll get your chance. Soon. He was used to control. Always had been. The kind of man who could walk into a room and quietly bend it around his will without ever raising his voice. I used to admire that. Used to think it made him strong. Now I knew better. It made him dangerous. A week passed before I reached out. I called him at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, the same hour I used to sit down for dinner with Rachel, before the affair turned my house into a stage set for lies. He picked up on the second ring. Jason, he said, like we were just catching up after a long time apart. You still have that cabin out by Cumberland Lake? I asked. A pause. Yeah, why? I'll meet you there Sunday. We'll talk. Another pause. Longer this time. All right, I'll bring food. No need, I said. Just bring the truth. I hung up. I didn't tell anyone I was going. No texts. No calls. I left my phone in the glove compartment just before pulling onto the winding road that led to the lake. It was late fall. Leaves covered the gravel driveway in thick red and orange piles. His truck was already there. The lights inside were on. For a second, I thought about just turning around, letting him rot in his guilt and isolation. But I needed closure. Not for him. For me. He opened the door before I knocked. Looked older. Smaller somehow. Like the weight of what he did had finally started to settle on his shoulders. Come in, he said. I didn't answer. I just stepped inside. The cabin smelled the same as I remembered. Cedar, dust, and stale air. Nothing much had changed. Same fireplace. Same old recliner in the corner. I used to curl up in it as a kid with a comic book while he grilled burgers on the back porch. Now, I couldn't even look at the chair without seeing his hands on my wife. We sat across from each other at the table. There were 2 beers between us. I didn't touch mine. He cleared his throat. I assume you want to yell. Or hit me. I shook my head. That'd be easy. I came here for something harder. He looked confused. I want to understand, I said. Not to forgive, just to know. What the hell were you thinking? He leaned back, rubbed his jaw. It started. I don't even know, Jason. After the stroke, she was kind to me. Listened. You were gone a lot, working. She said she felt lonely. She told me the same, I said coldly. His face tightened. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did, and then it kept happening. I told myself it was just comfort. 2 people filling space. But that was a lie. I stared at him. No rage, just disgust. You came into my home, I said, voice low, ate my food, slept under my roof, and the whole time you were screwing my wife under it. He didn't flinch. I know I deserve everything coming, he said, but I still wanted you to hear it from me. I nodded once. Good, I said, now it's my turn. I reached into my jacket and slid an envelope across the table. He looked at it, hesitant. What's this? Retirement account withdrawal papers. Your name's on them, but they're forged. You left your banking info on the office computer when you stayed with us. Rachel knew your passwords. His eyes widened. What the hell? Relax, I said. It's not real, but it could have been. I could have drained everything and left you bankrupt. No one would have questioned it. Not after they found out what you did. He sat back, breathing heavy. You came into my life and set fire to it. You think you're the only one who can play the long game. I could destroy you in ways you haven't even imagined. Then why don't you? He asked quietly. Because I want you to live with it. Every day. Every time you try to start over, you'll wonder if the next person you meet knows. If I've already told them. If someone's going to knock on your door with another envelope. He swallowed hard. So that's it? No, I said. That's just the beginning. I stood up, walked to the door. I'm changing my last name, I said without turning around. I won't carry yours anymore. He didn't say a word. I stepped out into the cold and left him sitting there, alone, with nothing but a beer, a piece of paper, and the silence he'd earned. The thing no one tells you about revenge, real revenge, is how quiet it feels when it's done. Not satisfying, not triumphant, just still. I drove back from the cabin in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the hum of tires on asphalt and the occasional creak of my old truck when I hit a bend too hard. The sky was bleeding orange when I pulled back into town, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to look over my shoulder. The divorce finalized 2 weeks later. Rachel didn't fight it. Once her job let her go, ethical concerns, they called it, she moved in with a cousin across the state line. Tried to apologize one last time via email. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. And my father? He sold the lake cabin, went off the grid. I heard from a cousin that he was staying in a trailer park near Mississippi. Alone, no friends, no real work, just sitting with the knowledge that he was the reason his son had erased his name from every document, bank account, and family tree. That was enough for me. But I didn't just let it all go. I kept one last piece of the past, a flash drive with everything. Video, audio, time-stamped moments frozen in ones and zeros. It stayed locked in a drawer in my new apartment. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder, not of them, of me, of who I'd become when everything I believed in shattered, of how I held the rage, the pain, the betrayal, and used it to carve out something stronger. 6 months after it all ended, I sat in a diner off Route 6 with a friend I hadn't seen in years. We were catching up, small talk, weather, work. Eventually, he leaned in and said, "You know, I always thought you and Rachel were unbreakable. What happened?" I stirred my coffee slowly. Smiled. "Let's just say my wife and my father both taught me the same lesson," I said. "Trust is fragile, and some debts don't get paid in dollars." He didn't press further. Smart guy. Nowadays, I sleep better. I laugh more. I work a little harder and talk a little less. The scars are still there, not on the surface, but underneath, where the deepest cuts live. But I carry them differently now. Not like wounds, like armor. Because the truth is, when someone betrays you that deeply, you don't get the old you back. But if you do it right, the new version, the one that walks away, holds the line, and never forgets, that version's a hell of a lot stronger. And a hell of a lot smarter.